möten från olika länder. Möten som ofta är själva förutsättningen för kulturlivet. De europeiska kulturinstituten här i Sverige inom nätverket UNIC har nu tagit plats på scenen för ett samtal om pandemins följder för det internationella kultursamarbetet. Welcome to Globala torget, Anders Eriksson with representatives of UNIC.
Thanks a lot. It's not very nice to be here. And we will talk about the COVID-19 and the consequences for the cultural life and the cooperation between different countries. We are all representing the UNIC Institutes in Stockholm, and UNIC is an organization built on the European cooperation. There are about 20 institutes operating in Stockholm right now. The Finnish Institute is holding the chairmanship at the moment, and I'm very happy to welcome my colleagues from the German Goethe Institute, Christiane Lausen, welcome, Zuzana Kabelkova from the Czech Institute, and Bogdan Popescu, who is working at the Romanian Institute in Stockholm. Please, in the beginning, tell us with some few words what have the corona pandemic meant for your operation here and your international cooperation, mainly the cooperation with the Swedish institutes. Would you like to start, Christiane?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, our institute life simply was marked by the fact that we had to cancel everything. So I guess that was for quite everyone. And then we tried to strengthen and to introduce more digital formats and more like to change the way we work simply, but on a very different level. So, and now we are slowly back to have physical meetings again, but under all the restrictions. And I mean, we are far from having a normal life, but the pandemic is still going on. So.
You are working yourself a lot with literature,
yes, exactly,
and translation of German literature to Swedish. And you have a library. You're operating, yes, a library in Stockholm. Have you managed to keep it open?
No, we didn't. I mean, it was closed until the summer. Now it's open again on some, but very limited. And but it's open again, so that's very nice. So the products are still available, so to say.
Susanna, how have you been able to keep up the cooperation between the Czech cultural life and the Swedish counterparts?
At the very beginning, we accepted the situation and followed the restrictions and recommendations. The question is how much relevant is actually public diplomacy in the age of pandemics. So we started to help the Swedish entities with protective gowns. We were suing, so we kind of showed solidarity, which is deep in our veins and quite typical for the Czech Republic. And then we just adopted the digital. All of the international festival actually had the platforms, so we kept going. And we were creative, we were flexible, and of course under big pressure, but we kept going.
What is your experience, Bogdan? You are working at the Romanian Institute in Stockholm.
Like many other cultural institutions, we had to rethink the entire strategy in the online environment, and also to take up the challenge of staying connected to our audience through digital and channels and platforms. To tell you, it wasn't easy at all to change the strategy in such a short time. It was quite difficult, and you have to have skills, to use new technologies, and to develop digital content for new audience, both online and offline. So that was quite difficult, and it was also a matter of being creative, as my colleague said. That everybody wanted to find new ways to run programs, to carry on, and of course it's very disturbing that you don't know exactly how long it will take. You cannot plan too much because you don't know what's going on in the winter, what's going on in the spring, and how strict will be the restrictions then. So it was also a matter of planning and the difficulty of planning.
I think most of us have been working a lot online. We had been forced to do that. What is the limitation of working online? I mean, if you are trying to keep up with the cultural work and cultural cooperation. What do you say, Susanna?
Well, recently we operate with the term hybrid diplomacy, and that means kind of combination of digital and physical. So we are using the digital space, of course, but the human contact is irreplaceable. So we insist on doing some activities. We work with the public space. We have this project which is actually run by many Czech centers from Brussels, Stockholm, to Sofia and Milan, and we kind of brand the public space with the campaign Grow Our Humanity. We are still trying to highlight the cultural diplomacy as not just event marketing, but also as like complex kind of space, as a complex activity which we are doing. There are translations, as you mentioned. There are very many ideas and platforms where you can exchange. So this is what we are trying to do, because the digital is helping a lot, but it's not everything.
How have you managed to keep up the networks?
Yeah, I mean, that's
between Germany and Sweden.
That's the biggest problem, actually. I mean, because we are very happy that we could meet digitally and all of this, and I think there were so many original formats being invented, and they broadened as well the audience you can reach. So it's a good thing, but you see clearly the limits because nothing can replace being with people at the same time in the same room and to just talk with them, and not always with a certain aim, but to simply, after an event, stay on and discuss things, and there are so many things happening then, and that's simply not replaceable.
So this is a challenge for us.
Absolutely, it's a big challenge.
Build new networks between operators in different countries.
Yeah,
what do we need to do then?
Yeah, well, that's I don't have the solution, but what I think right now, what we have to do is simply to invest in this whole cultural sector, because what we saw as a very big problem, I mean, in Germany, is that you could see, the pandemic showed very much how highly appreciated culture is and how much needed it is for everyone, but it showed also that this appreciation is not shown financially. I mean, the independent artists in Germany, they are struggling very much. I mean, the state-subsidized institutions, they have it easier than the independent artists, and that's simply what we have to do right now, that we keep going and that we keep doing things even if it's very difficult.
Is it the same situation in the Czech Republic and in Romania, that independent artists, independent musicians and so on, they are badly protected by the state system and the state support?
I think so, yes. The independent sector, it's very much vulnerable, and we can see that everywhere, at least everywhere. So the artists and the writers that don't have permanent contracts, they are very much vulnerable, and if this will last longer than expected, there will be, I think, there will be very huge negative effects on in the employment sector, and also on regarding the allocation of budget. So we have to find solutions and be creative, and to invest funds in culture, so that the people could carry on, could continue especially the most vulnerable we have to create networks. We have to find hybrid solutions and physical solution whenever is possible, and to come back to normal as far as we can.
Is this an item of public discussion also in the Czech Republic, the badly protected cultural workers?
Of course it is. Most of the people are vulnerable. They are freelancers or entrepreneurs, like in Germany or Romania. In Czech Republic, I can also witness some activities which are motivated by city or commune representatives as the festival about nothing. So the city hall actually they invested into that summer money, and there was festival about nothing. You could basically buy some tickets for your performance or for your artist who you wanted to support. So Czech people actually related to that. But again, that's the Czech solidarity. I'm also calling for something what would protect in a better way the soft power.
In Sweden, we have seen a lot of packages to support the cultural life. Do you have any interesting examples from your countries? How have, for instance, the German society supported the cultural workers? That is, that is possible to learn from. I mean, in the Swedish discussion.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's two levels, I would say. And on the one hand, it's the government, and they put up a huge rescue package for the whole culture sector. But then again, it's more easy for the institutions to get this funding. So it takes too much time until it comes to the independent artists. But then I think on the level of the population, I mean, many people just supported, of course, artists, and supported their bookstores, and supported the restaurants, and supported everything on a private level. But I think that's wonderful. But I think it shouldn't stay on a private level. And I think, it's very important that you just don't stay with saying that art is so very important for us, but that you give them a good protection for the future.
So a mixture of public support and private support.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But the public support, I think it takes too much time until the independent artists reach them.
Is it the same in the Czech Republic, Susanna?
I must quite agree with that. I mean, we have to protect the artists better, in a better way. It must be reflected financially. On the other hand, there are some good practices, as I mentioned, because that was actually a connection of city representatives and business platforms. So yes, it works, but it needs to be brought up, and those discussions needs to be seen more frequently.
Yes, I think it's almost the same in Romania. So it's very important to have different levels of support, from government support, but also local and the public support, private support, in order for the system to go on, to function. We have during the summer, some of the big festivals have been cancelled, but many others took place by maintaining physical distancing and people wearing masks, but they took place. And I can mention, for example, just few of them, just Corona Jazz Festival in the west of the country, a big jazz festival that took place, and the Transylvania International Film Festival in Cluj, and recently Astra Film Festival, a leading documentary festival in Sibiu. Also, they all took place. And yes, if you want to get into details, you will find definitely good solutions and good practices that in this moment is very important to share them and to gather information and initiatives that can be helpful from different countries, different sources. For example, the National Theatre of Bucharest all staged outdoor performances on the top roof amphitheatre all the time. So it worked very well, and also other theatres around the country. So yes, we can exchange good practices, and we can see how it works in different countries. And it's important to stay together and to know better each other and how we can do better in the future.
The fiscal problem is certainly a very big one, but also the fact that the borders has been closed.
Yes.
That is another consequence of the coronavirus. And now, what can we do to restart the international cooperation in the field of culture after the corona, so that people can meet each other, that the cooperation could start again? Have you any suggestions, Susanna, what can be done to restart it again?
Well, the mobility is about to have access, right? We need the access. It can be done by digital platforms, as we spoke. It can be done by some special visas, or, like we have special business visa. Why don't we have special or professional kind of visa for this kind of situation? So it needs to be relooked. I believe also maybe some kind of open course creations within residencies needs to be done no matter the pandemic. People need to gather together and maybe for longer, and we need to follow the restrictions and the recommendations. So maybe face masks, maybe tests. I don't know what it's going to be, but we need to finally don't think like within our small borders. We have to think internationally and more like human beings all together. We are all of us in this. It's actually one ship. We are sailing the sea, and we need to find out how to do that.
Yeah. The Finnish Institute, there are 16 of them, they made an open call earlier this year to invite the Finnish artists around the world to participate and to document, made a documentation of the corona crisis. What was the consequences of it? Have you any German example for how we can improve the cooperation between different countries, between Germany and Sweden, for instance?
Yeah, well, I mean, for us, it's right now people can travel, actually. They are allowed to travel from Germany. So we actually started now. I think 2 weeks ago, we had for the first time a German guest again. And now we will have some more guests during the autumn. But we never know if this will, because the borders can be closed again. So our policy right now is that we simply plan as if they could come. And we hope that they really can come. And at the same time, we plan for alternatives if they cannot travel. And try to, I mean, there are so many different formats now. But I mean, as Bogdan also said, in the summer it was much easier because we could be outside. Yeah. And we don't know how this will be now, but we simply try to stay optimistic, and we can't stop planning. So,
do you see any long-term consequences of the coronavirus concerning the international cultural cooperation?
Yeah, well, I think some things will for sure remain. I'm sure we will still keep with some digital formats, and that's a good thing, that we became more diverse in our and more creative. And I think that people will maybe consider more if they should travel or not. Maybe that will stay too, if only for sustainability reasons. I think you will maybe not travel all the time. But on the other hand, I think as soon as we can, we will have the good old events again, because that's what everyone is missing all the time.
Yeah. You mentioned this kind of information, we can now travel, maybe we can't, and we don't know, etc. We are hoping, all of us. Hope is not a strategy. I'm still looking for some sustainable kind of and transparent information system and international collaboration where we get straight recommendations, or even like by law regulated instructions how we can actually work together, because we don't know how it will be, and it means like we are dancing between the raindrops and no one really knows. So we are trying to be flexible, creative, but no one really knows. So I am really asking for like better guidelines and international cooperation, because at the end of the day it's not just about making a concert happen, it's about our relations, and only people can create culture, no AI yet.
And that will probably be the big challenge for us to rebuild these long-term contacts and between the cultural life in different European.
And even like think the sustainable development. We are going to face the global warming crisis, right? So look at this and just think how it will be in the future. So this is like a big test.
So this will be a hopeful end to this discussion. Thank you very much, Christian, Susanna and Bogdan from the Unique Network here in Stockholm. Och vi hoppas ju verkligen att det här ska bli också slutresultatet av den här coronakrisen, att samarbetet på internationell nivå återgår till det normala. Tack för att ni tittade på denna diskussion och en trevlig fortsättning på den digitala bokmässan.